HelloStavanger. I am surprised that no other speaker was so cheesy to choose that intro. So I'm just going to do the hello Stavanger. Woo! I'm trying to like bring up the energy level. I know it's like you've seen a lot of talks. Cool. So I got a question for you. I think I actually have a clicker. Nah. All right, cool. Anyway, I have a question for you. So have you ever experienced this? So imagine that you're building a new digital product for a big organization and it's robust and it's well designed and users they just love it in testing and you launch and then people really don't use it. It's now you can blame the users, but it could also be that your product just doesn't fit into the wider ecosystem. My name is Lars. I'm a strategic service designer at HelloStavanger. The speaker 2 times before me said that he dislikes people who just put strategic in. It sounds like I just put it in there. But I work with service design and strategic design, and I couldn't figure out a better way to say service and strategic design and make it roll off the tongue. So it actually means something. I'm getting to it. Anyway, I'm going to talk today about how ecosystems shape product success. So, sort of as a red thread throughout this presentation, I'm going to talk about a case that I've been doing, working on for Statsvegvesen. So to be like, go really, really quickly through a big project. And for those that don't know Statsvegvesen, they do a lot of things, but like mainly they build and maintain roads. They do a lot of things, but like, let's make it as simple as that. And that's a good thing, right? Because we want to be able to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. Yeah? But then the problem is, how many of you are excited when you see a roadwork when you're out driving? Not too many, and it's not like it's just a mild annoyance. The problem is that they cause delays, and those actually cost billions of NOK. So Vegvesenet approached Prague and Capgemini and said, hey, how about we help us build a digital tool? I'm going very fast there, but their hypothesis was this. We think that we can coordinate these roadworks better. We think that we can do more work every time we close the road. And then there will be less delays, and that will save a lot of money. Cool. So again, going really fast, really fast. This is 2 years. So we build it. It is, user-centered. It's like an iterative process, design thinking, strong cross-disciplinary team, all the good stuff. And then you know where this is headed, right? We launch, and I think this looks great. I was the designer, so I'm not objective at all. And people don't really use it. It's like we get a 20% adoption in the target user group, and we have some documented cases of coordination, but not many. And this can be really demotivating. So if you're a designer, you might feel, I didn't design this right. Or if you're a developer, you might be like, I didn't build it right. Or if you're a project manager, you'd be like, maybe we built the wrong thing. And this is sort of why I'm sharing this, because this is the situation we found ourselves in. This was really motivating, and I think there might be others in that same situation having felt this. And I'm here to sort of conveniently tell you that it's not necessarily your fault. So what's coming here is your excuses from now on about why it might not be your fault or why the problem might lie somewhere else. Because I think the most important learning from this is that products don't live alone. Any kind of digital product, service, tool that you build, they're influenced by so many factors. If this is your product, then first of all, it's probably affected by other digital products. Very few of us actually work in a place where we make the only digital product that our users use. They usually use a whole bunch of them, and they affect each other. But it's not just digital products, it's the organizational structure. How is the whole organization set up? Is it actually set up so that your users care about the problem that you're trying to solve? How is their daily workflow? How is their workday set up? Is that set up to actually match doing the thing that your product does? What is their job description like? Did anyone tell them that was their responsibility to be doing this? What's the internal policies like? What about the incentives? Maybe we incentivize other types of behavior. So to repurpose Jacob's law a bit, users spend most of their time on other sites. We can replace other sites by other digital product, other digital things. Most of the time, they're not using your product. And I know that your project is your baby. It's like you get attached to something when you work on it for a long time, and you think about it all the time. And if you get too attached to it, you even might be thinking about it in the shower after you stopped working. At that point, you should stop thinking so much about it. But while the baby is the center of your universe, it might not be the center of your user's universe. And I think this can sometimes be a hard lesson, because we spend so much time on it that we just assume that they think about it as much as we do. I think a good comparison is that some days you go out and you're like, oof, I have a really bad hair day today. Everyone's going to notice you have a really bad hair day. And then most people didn't even realize that you exist. Sorry about the bummer, but it's might have been a bit too dark. But the point is that we appear much less in other people's minds than we think, and our product as well. So what we need to understand is you need to understand your user's worldview. So what is top of mind for your user? And I'm not talking about in the context of using your solution. I'm talking about what are they worried about when they come into work, if it's a work application or whenever they use it. For this was for Veivesten. What do they want to achieve? What do they want to achieve throughout their day? Not necessarily just in your tool. It could be that your tool does that perfectly. But what do they worry about the rest of the day? So I'm going to give you some warning signs of low adoption that I wish somebody had told me a couple of years ago. First one being, if you speak to users and they're like, that's not my responsibility, in terms of, you speak about your product and they say, oh, this is great, terrific for people that work with that, which is not me, right? And it could be that you're talking to Paul and you should be talking to Christine, and that's fine, then you just, talk to the wrong person. But if you talk to Paul, he points to Christine, and Christine points to Paul, and neither of them think it's their responsibility, but their boss thinks it's their responsibility, or someone in management, then there's a problem there. Second one is if they don't have time, and you can work on load time. If they say that this is loading too slowly, I can't be bothered using this, you can work on that. But if they have 7 prioritized tasks, so their boss told them you have to do these 7 things, the task that your tool solves is not on that list, that's going to be a problem. Finally, it's sort of about user value. What's in it for me? Sometimes the user understands how your product benefits the business, but not necessarily how it benefits them. And this might sound egoistical, but let's do a quick test. So, show of hands, how many people here thinks that cybersecurity is important? How many? Most of you. Okay, second question. How many people are super excited to do a cybersecurity training course at work? I'm not seeing as many hands. You probably then realize the value of cybersecurity, but you're not necessarily enthusiastically, about doing it. It's the same thing goes that you might think that, oh, but users are going to understand how important this is for the business. They might understand it perfectly, but that might not motivate them so much. So what's a common factor about all these things that I'm mentioning? The common factor is that you can polish and you can polish and you can polish your solution You can bring in more developers, more UXers, but it won't change the outcome if the blockers are located outside of your solution. So, what do we do with that? How do we fix blockers outside of our solution? According to ChatGPT, I should call this design beyond the interface. Credit where credit's due. So this is how we usually focus when we work on a product team. You have your product team, you work on a user group, and then the rest of the organization is somewhere there behind, and which is fine. But obviously, as you're aware of, is that if you zoom out a bit, you realize, oh, there's a whole ecosystem, right? This is not the entire ecosystem of Soundwave, for instance. They have hundreds of applications. This is just our small product area. And when we started, this is a very simple mapping of that. And if you start mapping it a little bit more, then it's also more like that. It's not necessarily one neat user group per. Those users might have to do different things in different applications. They might have different relations to the organization. And then what happens if each team then just works with their group in isolation? Basically what I'm saying is that somebody needs to own this chaos. So back to the Vegvesen project, we were having these exact problems that I was talking about: responsibility, didn't have time, didn't see the benefit. And I was diplomatically raising the issue, complaining that we weren't dealing with this. And I'm just going to warn you right away, be careful about raising your hand, because the solution was, Lars, you fix it. And then I was like the John Travolta meme, how did I end up here? I used to be in this comfy product development team, and now I'm suddenly in charge of this chaotic ecosystem. But me and another designer then became sort of this two-man band trying to figure out, okay, what should we do with this big mess? So the first thing that we did as good designers is that we started gathering insights across the organization. So, basic things like, what are the current blockers? We started drawing up some nice what's the life cycle of a roadwork? What's the value chain? And how might we fix those? And we sort of came down to three main problems that I think are not so uncommon in this type of situation, especially in big organizations. So for the product, we found some organizational blockers. We also found that we were confusing user and customer, and we found a lot of silos, basically. So let's dive into that. So we were trying to figure out, okay, again, we want to coordinate roadworks so that everyone can get from point A to point B with less delays. It's going to be massive cost cutting for society. What's the problem here? What is everyone not getting that we're getting? And as we started speaking with users, we ended up actually drawing up a full-on Maslow's pyramid of needs for coordination of roadworks. And what did we realize? We realized that, okay, everyone's interested in getting the job done on time and budget, and everyone's interested in health and safety. 100% of people, but on top there with all the words, that's how many people are interested in thinking about how the drivers are going to come easily from point A to point B. They felt like that wasn't really their responsibility. And we were thinking, how has this happened? How has this happened in the organization? And then we start digging and digging and digging. And we found out it's not that hard. It's once you start digging, it turns out they were measured on this first level. Their boss, when they did their yearly review, they measured them on this. They never measured them on anything else. And so because they always measure them on the bottom one, they get the job done and do health and safety, which is good. It's great. There's a great safety culture in Vegvesen, and this comes together with those the way that they measure, the way they incentivize. The problem then is that things that fall outside of that suddenly become stuff that they don't really necessarily going to prioritize. basically coordination is voluntary. The rest are sort of like, some of them are interested in, for instance, we should organize our roadworks better because sometimes I go to do roadwork and then there's already someone else there and that's embarrassing. Or I see some kind of, that I could save some money by merging my roadwork with someone else. But this then becomes very random, accidental. It's not standardized. There's no system behind it. And I don't think that we realize how much of, like, when you're out driving and roadworks are neatly organized, it's mostly because some people in Vegvesten, they've taken on the voluntary position of doing this in addition to their regular workload. And that's not fair either, right? So there's a few really, really hardworking souls who's just taken upon themselves to just do all of this. And some of them are about to they're getting a bit old and they're going to take their pensions soon. So this is going to be a problem if we don't standardize it. So what can we do? One of the things that the new two-man band, if you will, that we did, sort of a quick win, is that we help write some new Vegvesten internal policy, which says that coordination is now mandatory. So now it's no longer voluntarily, now it's mandatory. But does that change any behavior? It changes as much behavior as when you change the terms and conditions. But it is good because now somebody that does this, they can justify it to others saying like, but this is actually mandatory. And the product team could then go out and say, hey guys, this is actually mandatory, and then start building culture around that. And then they can start pushing those buses around, be like, hey, you actually need to measure on this because now it is mandatory. I couldn't really find out what was the opposite of a quick win, so I put in bigger, slower win. But it's because it took longer time, but it was a bigger one. So if anyone has a better phrasing, I'd love to hear it. But anyway, the bigger, slower win. This is a bit more specific, but it's also about like what can you do when you can reach further out into the organization. So this tool that I talked about originally, they needed to know about all upcoming roadworks, and they needed to know far in advance. Asphalt work, this gets very specific. They are done in May, and then they tell the rest of Vegvesten, maybe they actually know then when they're going to do it in January. So if the data is available in January, how about we just get it in there? But the problem, again, is I don't have time for that, because they put it into their asphalt system and there's no API, and then all the data must be entered manually. And the users were not amused. So the long-term solution here is obviously getting an API in place, but it wasn't technically feasible to get that done fast. It's still not done. It's getting done sometimes next year. What can we do in the meantime? So our approach as a two-man band, okay, let's do some insights with key stakeholders, see what we can do, which is basically the boss of the asphalt people. And we find out, it's a lot of data, but when we do the math together with them, we turn out it's actually just half an hour of work per person. So it's not ideal. It's manual data entry. It's not good user experience, but it is quite a big win for Vegvesten to have this data, and it's not that big of a job for each individual person. So they were like, "Whoa, we can do this." They weren't that enthusiastic, but we sort of convinced them. And so data entry then increased by 600% from 2024 to 2025. And the data became available by over 3 months earlier. What is the point by me telling you all this? The point is that this happened regardless of the product team. The product team didn't do anything else to get the data sort of in. They didn't make it easier. It wasn't, and they couldn't do anything about the API. That was outside their scope. That wasn't their solution. But sometimes if you can send someone in to start fixing and talking and looking at these organizational problems that sometimes the product team just realistically can't do because they have so much else to do, just sending us in and then just talking with people, literally just talking with people and convincing them that this is a good idea, this is what we can achieve. They ended up using that same tool, and they got this massive win for that product team. Another thing that we were working on. So this is the second thing I was talking about, was finding the right customer. If you worked perhaps in the public sector, you might have noticed this, is that it's easy to confuse the user and the customer. And I love this drawing to explain it. So the customers for baby toys are not babies, because babies don't have money. But the users of baby toys are babies most of the time. But if you get too hung up on the customers, you might make something that's only good for the people with money, but not for the people using it. I think in public sectors, a lot of the time it's the other way around. We get very hung up on helping the users because we like to help the user. We want them to have a better day. But if, for instance, if Vegvesenet only does that, then perhaps the workflow becomes easier, but the driver never gets faster from point A to point B. So it sounds a bit silly, but we then helped the teams understand that their client is actually the driver, not the internal employees. Their internal employees is, in fact, the way that they can reach those clients. That sounds like a minor tweak. That also tweaks all of their outcomes, all of their goals. Suddenly their goal is no longer sort of the adoption rate or how many clicks or how much usage. It's what's the outcome, what's the effect that we created. And again, it's not that a product team couldn't have done this on their own, but I think the added value of having sort of someone independently doing this is that we could go about doing all of this. And then the product team could still keep on working on the things that they were working on. Finally, we were looking at, so if you saw the previous speaker on strategy, he went way more into that. But basically we saw that the teams were lacking good strategy. They were making good products, but again, the problem was that, first of all, how is the experience across solutions, and then how does it all benefit the driver? So we were sort of then tasked with, like, from the drawing earlier, okay, how is this working between all of these different teams? So, okay, what can you do with that? So then we start drawing up an ideal user journey for drivers, from all the way from start planning your trip, all through all the things that you can encounter, and all the way until after you're done driving. We're focused mostly on truck drivers because they have more problems than regular drivers. They need more things. And then we start building down all the things that Vegvesenet would have to do in order to accomplish that ideal customer journey. And then that helped understand, okay, how can all of us, if we band together, how can we create that ideal customer journey while solving pain points for the users that we see every day, so that we can both, as a team, feel that I'm helping all these users that I know so well, but we're also making the roads, or we're making it easier for people to get from point A to point B. So now I want to finish off with something that's less fluffy, because this might seem all a bit fluffy, because, you know, that's nice, but did all this lead to anything? It's your tax money, after all. I'm working for you, or I'm working for the king, to be exact. It's the king's Vegvesenet. Fun fact. So I'd say it's working out pretty well. So in terms of estimated societal savings, that first year when I was still working on the product team, we had approximately 760,000 NOK of societal savings, in a couple of cases of documented coordinated roadworks. Then second year around, so last year, about 4.5 million NOK. This was when we started starting off this like two-man band kind of thing. And then for 2025 alone, they're estimating savings of 60 million. So still not enough. The goal is 1.1 billion NOK saved annually, but the progression is quite nice. And just to brag a little bit more, we also won a design award Frog Globe Best of Enabled in 2024. So anyway, it did lead to something. What's the takeaway from all of this? I think one of the most important conclusions to draw from this is that sometimes it's just not your product's fault, and I think that's can be nice to hear. It's kind of like you can build it right, but it could still fail in the sense that you might have resolved the problem of how to do it digitally, but if the more prioritized problem that you should have done first, which is setting up the organization to be able to do it, then that might need to be in place before your tool can actually be a success. And I think it can be nice to think about that in your current project, in future projects, to be thinking like, are we set up to be able to have the success that we want to have? And if we don't have this, what can we do to set ourselves up for success and like talk about this risk early on? Yeah, sometimes the problem is in the wider ecosystem. So it's not always so easy, but try to lift your vision. It can be easy to be caught up on your little part of the puzzle. And sometimes we all get very good at creating very nice puzzle pieces, but then when we're going to put them together, there's like a few missing in between, so we can't make the full picture. So sometimes you just need to lift your vision to see what's the real blockers, what's the real reason why this is not working. Yeah, if you want to connect and keep the conversation going, you can talk with me there. And yes, thank you.